Welcome back to Frank's Model Aviation Workshop. This is episode 22 in the Carl Goldberg Ultimate 10-300 Biplane Build Series. This episode we've reached a point where it's just a bunch of miscellaneous finishing up stuff. So I think what I'm going to start with is get my rudder servo and horns and elevator servo and horns and push rods and all that stuff set up with the control. Get the horns drilled. I like to pre-drill before I cover. That way I have a reference for the holes whenever I go to install them later. And then we'll just see where we go from there. I'd like to start the superfill on the wheel pants and the cowl, and do some seal work, with the thin resin in the cockpit and underneath the cockpit floor. Just do a lot of the miscellaneous stuff before we start to actually do the filling and sanding, because what I'm going to do now is going to cause some dings most likely. So we'll get that started and just play it by ear. Lots to do. It's a lot of little finicky stuff that it kind of tries the patience at times, because you want to get it done, but I don't want to rush it. So we will get going on that. But before we do, if you like this type of content, please consider subscribing to my channel. Hit that notification bell so that you can be notified of future episodes of the build series. And be sure and like and share my videos. I'd really appreciate that. And it might help the new guy out. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, the first thing I want to do before I forget is harden these screw holes so that I don't strip them out. Whoops, dang it. Gotta be careful, you don't want to get CA all over your dang airplane. You gotta blow it out. If you don't, that CA will form like a window there and it'll mess over your screws. I'll do the same to the other side. Being careful, don't glue the plane to my pad here. Okay, that'll work for that. What do we want to do next? I think I want to start with the servos. I'm going to hook them up to my receiver and get the elevator and rudder servos centered. And we'll make the push rods for the elevator, and we will make the pull cables for the rudder. Okay, change of plans. First thing I'm going to do is mount these landing gear. Get the screw holes set and the straps in. So let's do that first. And I don't know how people have had their landing gear come out of those slots inside the engine bay there, or the tank bay. Mine don't even want to come out. So I don't know how people are doing that. Find the right screws. 2 nylon landing gear straps and 4 number 2 by 1/2 inch screws. So I'm just going to start it. I'm not going to screw it all the way in yet, because I want to drill that other one yet. So I'll get these mounted, and then I'll unmount them. And harden those threads with thin CA. Alright, landing gear's mounted. So we will take those out and harden those screw holes with thin CA. See, these things don't even want to come out. You gotta force them out of there. Alright, next step. That will harden them holes with some thin CA. Now I'll do the same with the rudder or tail wheel. I already mounted it, so I'm just going to dismount it and harden those screw holes. I want to be careful of this because there's a CA hinge in there. When I was digging for something, I found my plastic strip. Dadgummit, I could have used it. Oh well. Save it for later. Okay, I'm going to start by doing these elevator. Get the elevator out of the way. And the way I'm going to do that, I'm going to take this thing and we'll mark it right here at the bend. I always like to mark it on the inside of the bend. Roughly there. And then we'll just match that bend up. And you can see it's way off, so you just straighten it out a little bit. And right there is right on the money. So now we'll go down here and match up this bend. So I put it on the inside. And when you go to bend it, you want to sight down, make sure that's 90 degrees to the plier. And you're making basically a dog leg. You ever bent conduit, it's kind of like the same thing. And that's pretty dang perfect. Close enough. So now this is going to make a 90 into the pushrod wood. I'm doing the single servo elevator. I know it's controversial, but that's just the way I want to do it. I just want to keep it light more than anything. Looks close enough to me, so I'm going to cut that off. So there's one side. Now we'll do the same to this one. Move that out of the way because I know it's going to be in the way. All right, there it is. There's two. Perfectly bent push rods. Now we're going to match this up. First, I'm going to put a groove with the centering tool. What I'm doing is marking where those push rods are going to go in, and we are going to drill a 16th inch hole using the centering dealio. I'm going to use the threaded end to dig that groove out. This is a classic Goldberg style push rod setup. So what you do is you glue those push rods in. I'm going to use medium CA. I'm just sighting down to make sure they're lined up with one another. And you know, it's going to have a little give, so it doesn't have to be perfect right now. Just those bends have to be where they're at. Now I'm going to take some thread and we are going to bind that. can see what I'm doing there. I'm just wrapping thread around. I always keep, anytime I have like a model that I built, like a ship or something, I always keep the rigging thread because it's good for stuff like this. I mean, a lot of people will use those Sullivan style red conduit push rod tubes, that kind of thing, and you can, it's no big deal. I'm just going to build this kind of traditional Goldberg style, and when you get to the end, that should be way plenty. Just cut it off. And then we'll harden that with CA. That's basically the elevator push rod. I'm not going to cut this end until I get my horns on my elevator, the clevises on here, and figure out how long I need this to be to make it to my elevator servo. Okay, as you can see, I have the push rod installed in the plane, and now we're going to mount the elevator horn on the elevator. So basically these holes that are in the elevator need to line up with the hinge line when you mount them. So I'm going to line these up with the clevises here, and we will get these mounted on. In fact, I think I'm going to go ahead and connect them to the clevis. Now you notice I have my AMA approved safety thing on there. You can't fly unless you're got those things on there. So basically we're just gonna line it up. This here is not important yet. When we go to hook it to the servo, then we'll lock these in place. But what is important, I want to make sure I get these horns mounted evenly on both sides. I'm going to get in there and make these a little bit wider because they're not allowing enough movement. This is where the elevator push rod exits. That's better. Trying to get full range of motion without it binding. I just want to bind on that. Really hard to get your hands in there. drilling, you got to be able to adjust what you need to adjust. That's good right there. So now I'm going to mount these. What I'm doing down here is measuring how far apart those things are, roughly. 2 3/4, center to center. Where you go? So I moved a little bit. There's 2 3/4 right there. So now we're going to now we can mount them where we want to mount them in the right spot. This is a time-consuming deal, so just take your time and get them on there right. That's all that matters. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to mark them where they go. Somehow. Okay, so I went ahead and marked it where it's going to be. Now I'm going to unsnap this, take the elevator off, and go drill that. Sorry for the silence, I'm trying to concentrate. I'm not perfectly centered on my hinges. I'm just temporarily mounting this thing. Whoops, dang it. Gotta maintain my gap here without breaking the dang elevator. There we go. So we'll go ahead and snap that on. That's one. Alright, we'll do the other one, then we'll get ready to do the elevator servo. It's already centered. I just need to basically, this is what I'm doing. I'm just lining that up on my marks that I made, making sure that it's 90 degrees to the elevator. We're getting there. At least we know we got these located in the right spot now. I'm not putting the back plate on until after it's covered. Now we'll put this back on, and I'll get you where you can see what's going on. Okay, so here's full range of motion. So now I know that I need to cut this probably back to here. So it'll be just a short stubby, and I'll just make a wire push rod with a Z-bend on the end, and it will go up inside the control horn. That's centered. So I'm going to center these by taping them and make a mark where I want to cut. Okay, so what I'm going to do first, I'm going to make my Z-bend, and then I will cut this where I think I need it to be, and we will go ahead and put this Z-bend with a little 90 down here. We'll put the Z-bend in the horn and the 90 going down. Is it going to go up? Let's see. Yeah, it's going to be below the horn, so I was making sure I was even, but we're going to do the Z-bend. Well, let's do the Z-bend now. I'll just do that using these Z-bend pliers that I got. These things are awesome. They make a perfect Z-bend every time. So I'm going to take that horn off. These are Metal Gear ball bearing servos with a crap ton of torque. Make sure you get that horn 90 degrees to the deal. Okay. I'm going to cut this about right here. I'll cut that wire about right here, and we'll put a 90 down in there. But I'm not going to. Well, let's go ahead and cut that. Let's make a mark before we lose it. I'll make a mark and bend this 90 on this first. This finishing up work, it takes so dang long. I know there's guys that probably whip this stuff together in no time, but I don't like to rush stuff like this. I want it to be perfect, as perfect as I can humanly get it. I'm just going to indent that right there so I know where I need to drill my hole. And we're going to take this loose. And out without destroying it, preferably. There it is. So first things first, I'm going to cut that off. So now I'm grooving that out. Drilling a hole in there. I'm going to glue that in there. And I'm going to carve this to a point here. I'll show you what it's going to look like before I put it in. Now I'm going to bind that with a thread. Okay, now we'll mount her back up, see what she looks like. I don't know how I'm going to do this when the plane's covered. It's going to be a pain in the butt. Can't remember how I did it back in the day. It's been a while since I built one of these things. So we'll mount this. Looks like spring hitched a ride. That will complete the elevator hookup. Uh-oh, battery's dead. Gonna have to charge my batteries. Well, anyway, you get the idea. It's centered. I apologize for the crappy camera angles and stuff, but here's the setup. Z-bend on the servo. Short piece of, I think it's 3/8 square with my push rods. And we're all level with the other one. Kind of hard to see, but it's level. So it'll probably need more adjustment once I get it covered and those things permanently mounted, but it's basically where it's going to be for now. So next step, we're going to get the rudder push rod and servo, well, not push rod, rudder pull system and servo mounted. Get that zeroed in, and pretty much that's it. Then we'll strip all the push rods and pull systems out, and we will go ahead and start filling and sanding and super filling. Get this thing ready for covering, because there's not much left to do now. The hard part's pretty much over. Okay, we're going to install the rudder servo now, and I'm going to have to platform it, or put up some, raise it up basically, maybe 1/8, because I moved it from up here to back here. Kit shows it up in here. So I'm going to have to raise it. So I'm going to glue some 1/8 by 1/4 bass right in here. We'll get that glued on, and then we'll get this mounted. Okay, I didn't have any bass, so I went with that hard balsa spare piece of you know, the push rod there that I used for the elevator servo. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to glue these in centered where they're going to be, because the elevator servo or the rudder servo has to be centered. So we'll glue these on top of the basswood, and it'll be good enough because I've used balsa wood. I've mounted servos on balsa sticks before. You just harden the threads up with CA and you're good. So I'm going to draw a center line on these so I can get them centered with my center marks on the bass here. I'm going to use thick CA to give me some time. It's not much time, but it's time nonetheless. At about 2 seconds. This will give me enough height to where I can make it out the exit holes in the right spot. Alright, now we'll take the rudder servo. What I'm doing is centering the servo on my center marks, and I'm going to use my centering tool here, just drill the hole. These would be so much easier to do in this opening. Uh-oh. Screwdriver won't fit down in there. What I might do when I cover this plane is leave this section of the covering off. I know I usually start with the bottom, but it'd probably behoove me to leave this off. That way I have access to all these servos and push rods while it's open. So we got that open. Now, next thing I want to do is mount the horns on the rudder. Alright, these are going to get mounted like that on either side of the rudder. So you have to drill the holes through one of them. So the screws will go through and into these drilled holes in order to capture them. So that's what I'm going to set up to do, get these lined up on the rudder, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, so these get mounted same place as the elevator, but they got to be 90 degrees to the surface, and these holes here have to be on the hinge line. So I'm going to take this rudder off so I can do it the correct way. So it goes basically like that. And I'm going to drill a pilot hole, or a pilot dent. So you got it through. Now you need to go to the other side, make sure it lines up. And we'll screw it on there and see what it looks like. This is why I waited to do my filling and sanding, because I know for a fact I'm going to be gouging the crap out of this rudder while I'm doing this. Drill it just like that. Alright. Gonna play hardball. I just cleaned out that hole just a little bit. There it is. I got it. Oops, another gouge. Another gouge. There it is. Finally. Alright, let's mount this back up. is mounted now. I'm going to lock the rudder in position. I'm going to do that by using these gauges for the throws, and I'm going to tape them on either side like that. That'll keep it straight. This is a crucial part that needs to be done in order to get your pull system set right. I want to be good with that because there's no real way to lock it. That's the best way I know how to do it. And it's going to stay still enough to where it always center itself. So now we're going to make up the clevises. I'm going to mount. What I got to do is I got to figure out the cable length. So I'm going to take the clevises, put one on the servo arm, one on the control horn. And I got to screw the brass into the clevis. So I'll do that, and then we will take one of the cables out and see how long we need to make it. Okay, so we got to screw the clevises on. So I'm going to soap up my threads. It really helps when you're screwing these things on. And I only put them in till they're no more than 1/8 through. Or 1/8 of an inch of thread showing. That way you have something to play with. I like that, if you can see that. Okay, I'm going to do one more. Then we'll get set up to solder those cables as soon as we get a length. Try to make them both exactly the same as best you can. So I'm going to put one up here. This is going to be very difficult to show on video, but I'm going to try. I got one clevis and brass fitting here. I'm going to put another one over here on the servo, which probably can't see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to kind of feed this cable in. How far does that go in? It goes in about 3/8. Oop, don't want to pull it out of there. All right, that's the one we're going to solder first. Okay, first thing we want to do when soldering is, I like to sand what's being soldered. Kind of cleans it a little bit. Then you want to clean it with alcohol. Then you want to tin it. I'll let that cool for a little bit and I'll give it a good pull. Probably cool off with some alcohol, maybe. Oh yeah, it's on there. It ain't very pretty, but it'll do. I'm gonna go ahead and screw that clevis on. Can't forget my AMA approved securing device, aka fuel tubing. 1/4 inch piece of fuel tubing. I'll screw this in about 1/8 of an inch. Matter of fact, I might leave it a little loose for now. Okay, that's good. Now let's do this other side. Same way. What I like to do is put a little flux on the end of this thing and kind of like feed the brass fitting on. That way it'll kind of work its way inside. I'll get my holder over here. Good pull. I keep wanting to forget my AMA approved clevis securing device. Okay, let's check it out. All right, I'm going to feed it through the hole. Oh yeah. Pretty sure we can pick up that slack. There's one. I'm gonna do the. I'll show you what it is, what I got, and then I'm gonna do the other one off camera, and then we'll come back and tighten them up. Okay, I'm going to try to tighten them up a little bit, see how much slack I can pull up. Okay, they are hooked up, and they're probably a little too tight because they're pulling the hinge out on the bottom here. So when I go to test this, it's probably going to come out down there. But we're going to give it a shot. Are we going the right way? Nope. Well, that's a major throw on that thing. Yeah, it's pulling it out down here. Probably get more throw out of it. Let's see. Probably going to have to do most of this after it's covered and the hinges are glued in. That's probably maxed out right there. Oops. Radio is done on the fuselage. I'm thinking about loosening those up just a hair. Maybe not. I'm not going to do it yet. We'll just leave them hooked up for now. There's definitely a difference. Nothing. Nothing yet. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking about moving this servo back here so that I can put it on its side and have a better linear motion, because as that arm is going at an arc, it's making these, the elevators, kind of act like ailerons, because they're kind of like that kind of thing. So I might have to re-engineer this. Don't like to do that, which means I'm going to have to extend this, which is no big deal. I'll just I'll sand it, clean it, wrap it in copper wire, solder it, just like I did the P40 Z-bed. But I'm thinking about moving this over here. It'll probably be a lot better. We'll see. Okay, so this servo is going to flip like this and move up here. So I'm going to have to reverse that. And I need to gain access to that servo. So I'm going to use one of my punch outs for the access door. And because the head of the engine's on this side of the plane, the servo I really want to put on that side, the opposite side, because that way it'll kind of offset some of the engine weight, less weight I have to put in the tip. Well, not really, because I got this servo on this side, so that'll even that out. What do I want to do? I don't know, we'll figure it out. Here's what I come up with for a hatch. Tab. And I'll have a couple screws hold it in. Nice and flush. I don't really care for it, adding weight, but I need access to that servo. So now I'm going to go ahead and move that servo back. Now that I got a good hatch that's nice and flush, I can go ahead and move it. Okay, so two things. Relocated my elevator servo so I have a more linear movement, because when it's this way, you get too much deviation in the elevator. So right now, see if I can't get it. It moves exactly the same. So we're good there. And I had to raise my rudder servo up one more because it was rubbing on the exit. So that does it for the radio install. And I want to show you, oops, hold on a second. I made a nifty access panel. I don't like to do that, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. I'm not cutting a hole in the side of the side of the covering with the Blue Hawk on it. So did you even see that? There. Held in place with two screws. That way I can at least access the servo if I have to. And that's good. I'm good to go. All I gotta do is now adjust the and I'll wait till after I get them mounted in on the covered and glued in, because you know you have deviations with, you know, gap here. I was gonna change that. So anyway, we'll stop with the radio install. We're done. It looks decent. So to make my access panel, I did the old tab deal, but because this piece was so warped, I had to put rails in along these edges here, and I put my tab here to mount the screws in. And this is just the old piece that came out. And it just goes in with the screws. That way I can access that servo after it's covered. Hard to do this left-handed. But I'm going to give her a try. Probably end up using washers. I would say, because it's kind of denting that light ply. So it's nice and flush. Looks pretty good. So that's that. I'm adding weight. I don't like to add weight to the dang plane, but I need the weight back here anyway. I'll show you my solder I did. So where my Z-bend was going sideways into the upright servo, I cut it off and then made another Z-bend and went this way with the sideways servo. I just cut this 3/8 bass out, made the mounted the servo to it, and made some gussets so it's nice and strong in there. And I also gave a 1/8 inch gap underneath the servo just to give me some height. Probably didn't need that, but anyway, all I did here, I sanded both ends, cleaned them with alcohol, wrapped it with copper wire, fluxed it, and then wicked in a crap ton of solder in there. So that's you can pull a truck with that, it ain't going nowhere. So that's basically it. I'm running on about the radio, but I wasn't going to be able to go to sleep tonight until I got this fixed. And I do that a lot where my brain's just running in overtime and I need to get stuff done. Otherwise, I can't sleep. So I'm happy with the way it is. Now I can go ahead and start the finishing work. Oh, I'm going to seal. I need to seal this bottom with thin resin and seal the cockpit. Going to do that because I'm going to mount Velcro in here to mount my receiver and my battery. And I can go ahead and mount the battery anywhere along there to adjust for weight. CG. Receiver, not sure where I'm going to put it, but I know I'm going to put it in there somewhere. I got to run those antennas, at 90 degrees. So anyway, I think I'm done for tonight. Maybe I can get some sleep now. I'm happy with it though. Let's see, is it on? There she is. All we gotta do is the ailerons. So the throttle servo is already hooked up. Oh, and I was checking my superfill. These cans are pretty light. I hope I got enough. I might have to order some. So might have to do that on another episode. Okay, now that we got all of the servos and hatch doors and push rods situated in the fuselage, I'm going to commence with the thin resin fuel proofing. I also want to fuel proof the top, inside the top on the front from the firewall to this first former. Fuel proof that a little bit. And I'm going to break out the superfill and I'm going to fill in around the cabanes here on the inside just a little bit, just to keep filler from going through from the top side. And I'm going to also, before I do that, I'm going to put my diagonal cross pieces in there to kind of lock them in position, because when I put that superfill in, if these are not where they need to be, I'm going to fight getting the holes to line up. So that's what I'm going to do first, is put those on temporarily. before we do any super filling of the cabanes. But I'm going to go ahead, mix up some thin resin, which is basically like 10 grams resin, 10 grams hardener, 20 grams denatured alcohol. That's my formula. So 25, 25, 50 percentage wise. So we'll get going on that and get this sealed up. Once this is done, we're going to start filling for the final sanding. We're getting close. I'm so close. I'm thinking about mocking everything up, the engine, the fuel tank, and everything, to see what she's going to look like. It's going to be pretty sweet. So anyway, let's get going. Okay, so now we're going to bolt up the cabanes temporarily using the hardware provided. And this bracket here goes under the cabanes with a lock nut. And I'm just going to loosely put it together for now. And here's where you get a preview of the color. That I chose as far as Rust-Oleum. This is Rust-Oleum Deep Blue. That's what I was talking about, how you got to get these lined up. And I can't see anything. There we go, that's that one. And these are just going to be temporarily mounted until they get that super fill done on the inside. Can't wait to get color on this thing. It's going to be beautiful. I know people think the Blue Hawk scheme has been overdone, but I like it. It's kind of, I think it's cool. That's that. So I'm going to, well, let's tighten up those first. Okay, those are on. Now we'll put the lock nuts on the other. Gonna play hardball, apparently. Try not to ding up your balsa wood. I don't remember my previous Ultimate kits having these nylon lock nuts. It's been a long time since I built one of these things. You know what we can do now that we got that all installed. Are you going to focus or what? Now that we got that all installed, we can go ahead and mock up the bottom and top wings and the landing gear and see what she's going to look like. But first, I want to get to doing the superfill underneath here. But I got to wait till that epoxy cures. At least on this side. I can do this side. But it's going to be, once that superfill's in there, it'll harden and those will be locked in. Those will always line up when you take them off. But I like that blue. It's really nice. Matches the covering really good. So we will let that dry and then I'll be back probably in about an hour. It'll be pretty dry by then. Be about 2 seconds for you. So I went ahead and mounted the top wing so we can see if our alignment is good. So right there we were at 4 3/4 from the top deck. So let's see what we got on the front. Looks like 4 3/4 to that pin there. We are perfectly lined up, which is awesome. So that means I don't have to shim that top bracket at all. And the plans show it, the instructions show it going underneath. I see people putting that thing on top, and I have no idea why they're doing that, but that's the way it's supposed to be. So now that I've established that the wing is completely parallel to the thrust line, I can go ahead and remove it. I'm done with that, and we will concentrate on doing the servos and extensions on the lost foam bottom wing as soon as I get the superfill in the bottom. I want to get this mocked up. It's going to be sweet. But we're coming along, isn't it? How you like it?
I like it.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. It's getting close.
So what are you going to do?
I'm going to turn this over and put some superfill underneath where those come out.
Yeah.
Okay, this is how close we are, fellas and fellette. I'm burnt out for this episode, and I'm still waiting on this epoxy thinned out resin to dry. So I want it to cure so I can sand it and put another coat on. So I got to work tonight or tomorrow night, so I don't want to rush anything. So I'll let that cure, and next day is off. I'll get back at it. These are the lost foam wings. These are the scratch built wings that I made, and they fit awesome. So I'm probably going to fly with those. I'll have the kit wings as spares, but I'll take you off the tripod, bring you around, and show you what I got so far. Still got to put the servos in the lost foam wing and the extensions. I got all the pull cable and the elevators situated. Everything's pretty much good. I still got to do the wheel spats for the landing gear, and then finish sand, filling sand. I want to get all the little fiddly tidbits done before I start filling and sanding. So we're almost there. Once I get my radio mounted, I'm going to put Velcro underneath the cockpit area to attach my receiver and battery back there so I can adjust the CG. Then we'll start filling and sanding, but we're getting there. I made a special hatch in the side so I can get to my elevator servo that I relocated. But it's looking pretty nice. I'll bring you around and show it to you, and we're going to call this an episode. I don't know what to name it. Miscellaneous BS. I don't know. But I'll get you some content out to look at. So anyway, if you like this type of content, please consider subscribing to my channel. Hit that notification bell so that you can be notified of future episodes of this build series. And please be sure and like and share my videos. It might help the new guy out trying to get his plane finished. So until episode 23, thanks for watching.